Hello, everyone. Welcome into this NWSL weekly roundup alongside NWSL veterans Lianne Sanderson and Lindsey. I'm your host, Lisa Roman. But ladies, before we talk about NWSL, we are coming off of an international break. It was the final FIFA window before the 2023 Women's World Cup when rosters are going to be named. There's plenty of international competition to take in over the last week. I was busy in front of all of my screens. But for the United States, the U.S. played against the Republic of Ireland in a pair of friendlies. Ireland debutantes in the World Cup this year. The U.S. sweeping that series 2-0 in the first match, 1-0 in the second match. Lori, I'm going to throw it to you first. As a former U.S. international, what did these U.S. friendlies tell you about how prepared the United States is for the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it told us a ton, and I don't think we expected anything. Flacco and Noski expected it to tell them a ton either. I mean, I think the first and foremost is a huge loss with Mallory Swanson going down with injury. I mean, that is massive. Leading goal scorer so far this year. So how do you replace? Do you replace by committee? There's not a like for like. But on one positive note, nothing to do with the injury, but it does offer up a position for somebody to really step up and claim something or claim that spot to get on the World Cup roster. But I think the first game, it just allowed what we may see as a starting lineup or very close to that going into the World Cup and see what the tactics look like. There were some good moments. There are some moments, obviously, where you're still looking at, okay, how can we speed up the tempo? How can we slow it down at times, especially if we're going to face some teams that sit in a lower block? We talked about that time and time again, right? And that has always been a bit of a struggle for the U.S. So that's one area I think that we're going to have to continue to look at. And then the second game last night, much more disjointed in the fact that a lot of rotation with players. That's what you expect. Players individually trying to showcase what they can do to potentially get themselves on a roster. So I don't know if it said a lot about where the team is. We just know that we have a couple months and it's going to be based on NWSL performances for a lot of the players and what can they do to continue to have that communication with Flacco to know exactly what they need to possess in order to get on the roster, and then tidy things up, little small details as we head into the World Cup.
Yeah, I think it's exciting though, Lisa and Lori, with regards to the US Women's National Team, with the young forwards that there is. I mean,
totally.
Came in, obviously Mallory Swanson picked up that unfortunate injury, but comes into the squad and then starts in the game. And there's so many young players, Trinity Rodman. It's really a good time, I think, for the front line of this national team. Alex Morgan is firing all cylinders in the NWSL, and I think it's probably been the best kind of strength and depth that you guys have had for a really, really long time.
Yeah, certainly. And not to underestimate too, like the fact that Julie Ertz is back, right? I don't want to that is massive. I think regardless, right? Like just the energy she possesses as soon as she comes in, demands the ball, the confidence, the experience. I mean, those are Lianne knows too in the World Cup, it is a grind, right? It is it is an emotional grind. You have to be ready. And then with a young team, to Leanne's point, you want that experience. But also shout out to Alyssa Thompson, flies right in after Mal Swanson. She was excellent in her first game a couple weeks ago against Gotham FC, scores the opening goal for Angel FC. So she's playing with years beyond. However, still plenty of time for her to get some more games under her belt and really showcase what she's all about.
Alyssa Thompson, not initially called in for this U.S. international break and the friendlies, called in and then not only gets the start but plays 90 minutes. So depth is definitely a key factor and a positive for this US side. Let's go across the pond because England also played a couple of games. They had one game in which they beat Brazil in penalty kicks, that game going until the very end, a big battle. Then they had a friendly against Australia where Australia beat the Lionesses 2-0. The Matildas ending the 30-game unbeaten streak. Lianne, former English international, we've got with us chatting today. I've got to ask you, what'd you make of these matches?
Of course, I'm on the show the day after England have their first defeat under Serena Wiegman, but
we set that up like that.
I know. But I think, the game against Brazil, obviously Dabinia couldn't play, Marta couldn't play. I think obviously it goes to penalties and England win the game. There's such a good vibe around Wembley with us winning the Euros there, the celebrations. It's so fantastic to see because I'm used to watching the US Women's National Team do those celebrations. So it's nice that we finally have that. I think what we've seen over these 2 games, and I love Sarina Wiegman, I think she's fantastic, but ultimately, I don't think we need to panic. Losing to Australia, they looked really, really good in that game. I mean, Sam Kerr always looks good. Gory looks good. They really do. And the manager does a really good job of organising them. And I think, obviously, Leah Williamson made a mistake on the first goal and there was a deflection on the second goal as well. But it was amazing how much England missed Millie Bright. And you could just see it's evident. And when people were talking about it before the game, I was thinking, oh, no, we should be okay. But, you know, Esme Morgan just didn't look at it. And she's obviously not got that much experience. I think there's been talk this week of Steph Houghton. Is she going to come back into the frame going into the World Cup? I don't really know why that's even a question, because she hasn't been there for a couple of years now. I understand why she would feel the way she does, but I think the game has evolved. You know, Leah Williamson's the captain now. But I think 30 games, Sarina Wiegman's been in charge and England are undefeated up until yesterday is an incredible feat. And, you know, I think we've learnt the lessons. Alex Greenwood also got sent home. I'm not making excuses why England lost the game, but I think it's shown us what we hope. I'm glad this happened before the World Cup, but Australia looked good. You got to give them credit, because sometimes I think we often look at what England didn't do, but we got to praise Australia. And the fact that they're hosting the World Cup along with New Zealand, they will have a lot of confidence going into that. But I don't think it's panic time. I think a lot of the media outlets in England have certainly not come after the Lionesses, but kind of saying, oh, this is what they should have, would have, could have done. But I'm going to live in hope that this was just one game. And we didn't look at the races. Kira Walsh was giving away the ball and she never does.
Yeah,
so I think Kira Walsh giving away the ball, you know, that's when you know it's not your day, because she never gives away the ball.
I actually think it's a positive. I think you have a clean slate now. There's a lot of talk about having no losses under Wiegman, and the fact that, like, you get that out of the way, go into the World Cup, your household name now, you have a lot of expectations winning the Euros, and now you can just, what do we learn from this? Move on, get ready for the World Cup.
There's a lot of adversity that a lot of teams are facing with injuries. I mean, we talked about with the US, with England too. There's so many different factors to come into it, but the World Cup is quickly approaching. July 20th is the opening ceremonies. We'll hopefully get rosters like mid-June. I'm excited about it. Lots of World Cup coverage that we will have you all covered with here at Attacking Third and CBS Sports all throughout the lead up to it and throughout the World Cup this summer. Lori, Lianne, let's switch gears a little bit because the NWSL is back. It is week 3. Sophia Smith, Portland Thorns topping the standings with Alex Morgan and San Diego Wave very close behind. The Thorns and the Wave in action this weekend, along with all 12 teams across the NWSL. Lori, match of the weekend for you. Hit it.
Yeah, Portland versus Houston at Portland. You know, I think you look at this Portland team, huge victories in the first 2 games. Sophia Smith, I mean, the most complete striker we have in the league, 4 goals out of the 8 total that Portland have scored. And they have just been electric. Lianne and I were on the game against Kansas City, and it was just... how do you say it? They just, you know, took it to Kansas City, I should say.
They look like they haven't missed a beat.
Yeah, no, they're like a midseason form team. And I think the reason why I picked this game, though, against Houston is because Sam Lady, their coach for Houston, new coach coming over from OL Reign, very familiar with Portland and the Cascadia rivalry. So this is a coach that's going to have his team very well prepared. 1 win, 1 tie so far for Houston. They were aggressive in the offseason in terms of bringing in some new players, Deanna Ordonez. They add that to Ebony Salmon and Maria Sanchez. So that front line to me is electric. And that is something that I feel like this back line, this Portland team in general, hasn't faced so far in this early parts of the season. And I think if they can come in, weather the storm early on in this game at Portland, because we know Portland at home is aggressive on the front foot, especially first 10, 15 minutes, try to put teams under pressure. They can weather that, keep the clean sheet, build into the game, and then utilize their front runners. I think this could be a really interesting matchup, and those front 3 could really put the back line, or at least expose some of maybe their weaknesses, right? Because I'll be curious how they rotate with this international break. They're the first game of the weekend, but I'm excited.
I was actually going to choose that game, but Lori stole it. And I have to give a shout out.
Get in first.
But honestly, to piggyback what Lori said, Portland Thorns last week against Kansas City Current, they were on a different level. They really were. Like, they're peaking now. Sophia Smith, I mean, Lori knows my expectations of soccer players are very, very high. And I think she has so much to offer. She's not even got started yet. I mean, on the 3rd goal, the way she spun the defender like they wasn't even there, and her knowledge of the game a soccer IQ is something that I think sets her apart for me from the rest of the players. But, Sam Coffey, what a player. We were talking about her, weren't we, Lori, last week? And I said, I didn't know how good she was until I saw her live. And her brain and everything was amazing. And I'm sure Vlatko enjoyed my question afterwards about Julie Ertz being selected, because I thought Sam Coffey should have been with a shout as well. But the Portland Thorns just look incredible. They really do.
There's a lot of positive bright spots at Portland. I mean, both of you mentioned Sophia Smith and how high the ceiling is for this player. She reached 25 regular season goals, the youngest and the fastest player to do it in the NWSL. And she's not slowing down anytime now. So, Lianne, you couldn't pick Portland and Houston, but we did force you to pick a team this weekend. So what's your second match to watch this weekend?
Yeah, so I've gone for the OL Reign versus the San Diego Wave. And my reasoning for that is because I just think, Alex Morgan last year and this year, she seems to have really matured into a complete centre forward. I was fortunate enough to have Alex as my teammate with the Orlando Pride, and she was a fantastic teammate. We always used to go together and ping balls and that type of stuff. But I've noticed a real maturity in her game in the last couple of seasons, and she's a real leader on this team. And I know anybody could turn around and say, oh, Alex Morgan, of course she's going to be the player to watch. But I think she genuinely is now. I think she can score all different types of goals. And I do give a lot of credit for that to Casey Stoney as well. Casey was a former teammate of mine. She also managed my team at Chelsea when she was caretaker manager, player manager. And I know how Casey operates. And I think she knows how to get the best out of her players by giving them the freedom, the guidance, and, the luxury of doing kind of what they want within reason, but having the guidelines there. And I noticed that a lot within this San Diego Wave team. That's what I'm seeing. And I'm so happy that Casey's been able to go in there pretty quickly and get the job done, similar to what she did at Manchester United women in their first season as well. And then this OL Reign team, that goal that Jess Fishlock scored last week was incredible. She's probably one of the hardest players I've ever played against. And she's one of those players you want on your team. You don't want to be playing against her. She's annoying to play against. And she is annoying to play against. I actually got my only ever red card in my career came against Jess Fishlock, because I got the first yellow card for dissent because the Lions person put their flag up and it wasn't offside and they gave the goal. I'm not hurt about it.
Blame the
I'm
AR.
not hurt about it, but she's such an incredible player, and the fact that she's been in the league, since is incredible. I know she's come over to England and gone back on loan and that type of stuff, but she just loves the game. You can see she plays all year round, and she's really a leader in this team. And that only goes to show she's not known for a goal scoring prowess, but that finish was incredible. So I think this matchup, I think the San Diego Wave will get, the upper hand on it, because I think they have the more quality. But I do think it'll be a really good matchup.
Yeah, this one should be a really good game. It's a Saturday night NWSL after dark action with a 10 o'clock Eastern kickoff. And it's also OL Reign's very first home game. They spent the first 2 weeks on the road in the league. Another game for me is Angel City versus Racing Louisville. This one's happening in LA. Angel City, they're 1-1 on the season. They've won one and they've lost one. Forward Simone Charlie coming out and announcing that she has torn her Achilles. Just horrible to see. So she will be out for the foreseeable future. How do some other players step in? We talked a little bit about the U.S. international break right now. Alyssa Thompson, the 18-year-old #1 draft pick for Angel City, getting called into the U.S. camp, getting her first start, 90 minutes. She's got that national team rub a little bit. She'll return to L.A. and play with this Angel City side. I'm expecting fireworks from Alyssa Thompson. Meanwhile, on the other side, Racing Louisville, this is a team searching for their first win, but they're getting there. The building blocks have been put into place. First week, it's a 0-0 draw. Second week, they go down 2 goals against Washington Spirit, and they come back, score 2 in the second half to pick up a draw in that match at home. Now they're traveling to LA. Can they put it together? A clean sheet plus scoring goals and finding the back of the net. Only time will tell. There's a lot of internationals for Kim Bjorkegren, but this week seems like the week of a break for this team is really going to help Racing Louisville. Lori, for Portland versus Houston, you talked about this a little bit, but which players are the key for a Houston attacking magic sequence that we get to see?
All of them. I couldn't just pick one. So I picked the front three of Sanchez, Ordonez, and Salmon. And listen, they're all completely different players, but complement each other really well. And I feel like one of the reasons why I was looking at this game in general is just because I think this is probably the most complete Houston team that we've seen in their existence. I mean, from the back line to more complete midfield to having the versatility up top, they have even more depth this year. But those front three, I think with Mexico not being in the World Cup, but then Salmon on the verge potentially could still make the England roster. So rooting for her, obviously. But if not, these three are here the entire season. And to be able to bring continuity to this front line, if one player's off, then the others can pick up. You have Ordonez, more of a target player, good in the box, can get on the end of service. You have Salmon that can get in behind, Sanchez with her beautiful left foot. So there's just so much variety in how they can attack and break teams down. And as they continue to evolve as a group, I think this is going to be one of the most exciting three fronts that we see in this league. And I think it could cause some problems for Portland, especially on the counterattack and through the run and play.
I like Ebony Salmon as well, Laurie, just to pick up something you said. I liked her when she played in England at Bristol, and she did really good. And it's going to be touch and go because even Beth England didn't make the roster for England this trip. And I feel like with Ebony Salmon, she doesn't really get any minutes at all. And that spot is now between Rachel Daly and Alessia Russo, because I've always wanted Rachel Daly as a centre forward. For Houston Dash, she was incredible year after year, scoring so many goals. And now finally Serena Wiegman is seeing that at Aston Villa. She's come to the league and she's banging them in for fun. So it'll be interesting. But if she doesn't get selected, it'll be really a massive plus for them because she'll be there all year.
Lots of moving parts with the international break happening and Maria Sanchez, Diana Ordonez both getting called up for the Mexican international break. They played against Houston, their club, and they also played against Chicago Red Stars. But Lianne, for you, OL Reign versus San Diego was your game to watch. And there are plenty of stars in this mix, but which stars have to shine the brightest for these teams?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before. Jess Fishlock, it seems like a no-brainer, but I just think she's on a completely different level to most of the midfielders within the league. Her engine, her soccer IQ, her ability to be able to feed other players in, and Alex Morgan. And again, people can say it's a no-brainer, but I've been really impressed the last couple of years. That's not to say I wasn't impressed before that, because I think Alex Morgan's accolades speak for themselves. But I think she's really shown a maturity within the last couple of years that she can score all different types of goals. Even the way she's stepping up to take penalties. It's only something small, but it's a psychological thing. And she makes it look easy. When they get even the penalty in the 94th minute, 98th minute, all these different penalties, the pressure is there. You're talking game-winning penalties. It's not just a penalty when they're 4 or 5 up. And that, to me, is the maturity and the leadership that is going to set the San Diego Wave apart this season.
For Angel City and Louisville, I'm looking at Racing Louisville forward Jess McDonald. She's a veteran in this league and a veteran with Racing Louisville. And Kim Bjorkegren, head coach for Louisville, has brought in so many different pieces, but he's leaning on McDonald to be that connector from the first 2 seasons into this 3rd season for the team. She started both games in the opening 2 weeks for Racing Louisville, but she's come off around the 60th minute. So we know about how much we're getting from McDonald. She's been there this past week during the international break, getting minutes. She's so lethal on the play. She can send crosses in. She can combine really well with Uchenna Canoe up top. Those are the pieces and those are the moments I'm looking for sparks from Jess McDonald. However, this Racing Louisville side going up against an Angel City midfield that is stacked with Savannah McCaskill. Lianne, I know you're high on McCaskill. What does she bring to this Angel City side that's going to be tough for Louisville to break down?
I think she's a fantastic player. I think her brain, I think she receives the ball between the lines well. Her turn of pace is brilliant. And her ability, you saw the ball that she played through that drew the penalty kick, to Alyssa Thompson. It was fantastic. It wasn't just a hit and hope ball. It was a purposeful ball. And I think it was a brilliant ball. And not only that, I just think her ability when she's on it, her knowledge, her awareness, and she seems to have taken her game to another level already this year. I'm noticing she's driving through the middle of the pitch with the ball. Covering more distance, receiving the ball higher up the field of play. And I really enjoy watching her play, as you can tell.
Angel City suffered a lot of injuries, and Savannah McCaskill has been one that has stayed very healthy and also stepped into that leadership role to take on more responsibility while she is in the center of the pitch. Lots of action across the NWSL with all 12 teams competing. It starts on Friday with just 1 match, Portland against Houston, and then 5 on Saturday running throughout the night. You can catch all the NWSL action across CBS Sports platforms.